Okay. Well, good morning, folks. Thank you for joining us today for our last day of San Antonio Entrepreneurship Week. Today, I'm extremely happy to have with us Sarah Woolsey and Aaron Villareal from Impact Guild and Mission City Renewal. They are extreme community advocates. They run a number of different opportunities, ventures, if you will, to support the growth of the community in San Antonio along the entrepreneurial sphere, as well as along the social innovation sphere. If you haven't been to their space, that background in the PowerPoint there is a image of the space. It's a beautiful space. It's literally the beacon in the area. It's got a really great lighthouse. And today we're talking about creating your community. And so I am a huge proponent of communities are the central focal point to success. And Sarah and Aaron have done sessions with us prior for a number of other things that really have increased the awareness of what's possible and connectedness of the community members. So I'm just so thankful to have them both here today. And I'd love to get us started. Perhaps we can start with y'all's intros and we can take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. We were thinking as a little bit of an icebreaker, a way to wake us up and get us talking a little bit more on this Friday morning. If you wanted to find something around you, something in arm's reach that is pivotal to your workday, go ahead and grab it. If you are able and you want to turn on your camera and show us what you got, you can also drop in the chat what you, maybe your name, your business, and what object you chose and why. So I will go ahead and do mine. Well, right now it's this cup, but it's usually this cup. I am a coffee drinker, so yeah. At the Impact Guild, the co-working space that we run, we also partner with community leaders in the coffee sphere. Right now we brew coffee with Shotgun House Roasters, who are located on the west side, which is where I grew up. And so I love our partnership with them. I love what they're doing to do community impact on the west side. And I love coffee. So I will constantly have coffee. Sarah will tell you, it's not a meeting unless I have either coffee or I'm eating. So, especially on Zoom. Sarah, what do you have?
I have a journal with me, and it's this journal. I find myself, I can be really reactive in my days unless I plan ahead at the start of each day. Otherwise, it feels like everything's flying at you. So this is this journal that like kind of lays out each week and day and helps you organize kind of based on the goals that you're trying to focus on. So you set quarterly goals at the start of it and then break it into like, okay, that means this week I'm doing this, and that means today I'm doing this. If this doesn't tell you anything about my personality, I don't know what will. But that, and yes, same local coffee shop with Aaron this morning. So also coffee, which I wasn't addicted to pre-pandemic, but am now fully addicted to. So those are my two things within reach. Would love for somebody else to share. Don't want to call folks out, but who might want to unmute and share? It's kind of fun that we're a small group this morning, so we can actually be interactive and kind of chatting with each other in this way. So yeah, Tim.
Hey, what's good, guys? Good morning.
What's up?
Yeah, for me, it'd be my my iPad. Like I don't completely wake up to it in the morning, but it's something I do travel with all the time because it has everything created for me. I have my Adobe Fresco in there, so when I want to like draw or paint, I'm up in it. I have my 2 calendars in there, and I'm constantly, updating, and I create music in there, and all my social media. So I like being on my iPad a lot. And I'm Tam from Live to Inspire Movement. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So good. I love you hit on like the creative and the organized side. Like you got both going on there. It's good.
I'm happy to go next if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is probably going to sound like the lamest thing ever, but for me, it's my mouse. I just feel like I can't be as productive. I don't know why, but when I bought this mouse, I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever bought in my life. Like, and somehow it really made the difference to whether or not I can work, because using the trackpad is just whatever.
Right.
And I think it symbolizes movement in my life, which is just like, how quickly can I get to stuff? And this just expedites. So
that's really
Awesome.
interesting. We lead a cohort together right now, a fellowship program with entrepreneurial change makers. And a couple of weeks ago, we were having people share their founding story, which is something we'll do today. And I realized there was someone who was sharing his story, and in his story, he kept using all of these words that were like, we move here, we push people, like there were a lot of words of motion. I was like, that's such an interesting, especially in that more entrepreneurial vein of like the language that we use and the tools that we then accumulate to help us do that. Really like have that. One of them was like catalyze. He kept saying catalyze a lot. I just thought it was so fascinating, like what we choose, the implements that we have, the language that we use to describe what we do. They all kind of work together to really shape the way that we see change happening.
dig it.
Danielle said she also uses a green notepad to religiously write to-dos. Anyone else want to share?
I can share.
All right.
So I am similar to Tam. I used to religiously use my iPad for like a calendar also, and I would write it out because I love the tactile element of it. Rather than just typing it in, I would write it. But Sarah inspired me to get a planner, and now I use that every day, and I also like that. So
Yeah, we're pretty big with Chrysalin's on our team. Yeah, she's new this summer, and so we're very much a tactile analog group. And Ryan, you got an upvote. Shannon agrees with you on the mouse front. So
I dig it.
well, awesome. Yeah, this is really cool. Thank you all for being here, for being so interactive. We're gonna talk a little bit more and be a little bit more interactive as the morning goes on. But yeah, like Ryan said, my name is Aaron Villareal. This is Sarah Woolsey. I just pointed it to her where she is in my screen. A little what, Brady Bunch style. Yeah, we're so glad to be a part of SAEW this year. Our organization has been around and part of SAEW for the last couple of years, and so it's great to be back this year. Ryan asked us to talk about creating our community, and this is something he said, we've done a lot of work with Launch SA around. We're very passionate about community. It's part of what we do. So I'll let Sarah introduce herself. She's the executive director of both Mission City Renewal and the Impact Guild. So Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. It's fun to be here this morning. Grateful in all the same veins that Aaron said. So the Impact Guild, as Ryan mentioned kind of quickly, is a co-working space. And we're unique in that we really care a lot about where business and entrepreneurship meet community needs and intersect with the real tangible, not only needs, but opportunities going on in our neighborhoods and around our cities. So really teach and do a lot around social enterprise and social innovation. And then the Impact Guild is one of our projects that is under a larger community development incubator nonprofit called Mission City Renewal. So that's what's going on with those two things. And we'll throw the links in the chat so you can go down that wormhole if you so choose. But I'll just quickly say the other types of things we do under Mission City Renewal is we have like a social innovation accelerator called Make Good. We have a project called Good Acres that's around helping mission-driven organizations like faith communities activate their real estate, their properties for community benefit projects. So we were on a thing yesterday talking about affordable housing and how groups around town that have property might start more affordable housing projects, or it could be all kinds of different things. That's actually our story through the space that we're in Beacon Hill, is that's how it came to be in renovating and retrofitting kind of this space to be a co-working space. And then we have a whole toolkit that we've designed that help around those principles of identifying the goodness that already exists in your neighborhood. And in lieu of kind of intro, I'll let Aaron, that's the aspect of our work that Aaron focuses on. So I'll let him say a tiny bit more about that and kind of transition us in. But we're really glad you guys are here this morning. It's an important conversation that I think a lot of what we'll get into today feels obvious in some regards, but it's areas that we don't always pay attention to cultivating in terms of why relationships and networks and community are actually really good business and really important to our businesses thriving and bringing in the customers that we're looking for, and that the levels of authenticity of knowing and sharing our own story actually creates avenues for critical partnerships and for, like you said, those customer bases and things like that. And so it's more of a intangible, I think, when it comes to good business. But so we're really excited that Launch SA saw the value in having this conversation kind of as a critical piece of what it means for each of us to grow our organizations and our businesses, but also then how we relate that in this broader network in San Antonio of what it means as we connect more with each other, what that can mean for kind of the whole in San Antonio. So yeah, glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, like Sarah said, my name is Aaron Villareal, and I work at Mission City Renewal, more on our toolkit side. I get to take individuals and organizations through journeys to talk about things like community development, community engagement, how we might more responsibly be a part of the geographic neighborhoods that we're in, the cultural neighborhoods that we're in, as well as helping people define their personal and their organizational vocation, what they hope to see, the change that they hope to see happen in the world, and how all of those things live together in community, not just within your own preset community defined by whether that's your organization, whatever your affinity group, your neighborhood association, but how who your neighbor is and how you might be in better relationship with your neighbor, with your neighbors, with the people directly around you. It's also really great to be a part of the Impact Guild and to see how that happens within business and within these coworkers, right? Let's see, we've been watching people learn how to invest in relationships that bring both hard skills and business opportunities, but also soft skills. And just this like really incredible network has started to form. She just moved, but we had a member who, she's a Black woman coming out of the military into civilian life, starting a podcast about being a Black woman veteran, about veteran health and mental health and all these different ideas, and watching her create relationships with someone who also co-works out of our space, who's a lawyer, and getting, this exchange of ideas of, have you thought about structuring your organization like this? Or have you thought about messaging your marketing materials like that? And just watching the two of them kind of exchange these ideas. We've also had writers who have become members of the Impact Guild, and watching them like form a writing pod where they will meet up and they're like, we're going to put our phones up and we're going to write for 2 hours, and keeping that accountability to actually, you know, doing the thing that they want to do, but also, you know, being able to talk through navigating publishing together. What does it look like to actually turn this passion into a business, and how do I keep, you know, moving forward? And having someone to cheer you on in that is so invaluable, especially to growing an organization. But I don't know anyone better to talk about growing an organization from scratch than Sarah. We're going to get into our founding stories and why these are so important to us as we learn how to create community. So Sarah, would you like to take over and talk to us about founding stories?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so this idea of founding stories, even like considering ourselves as founders of something, I don't know about everybody else on the call, but like I still struggle with that idea of like, I don't know, I'm just a person here trying to scrape by and like keep this thing afloat and make this thing work. So even like referring to ourselves as founders potentially can be an intimidating thing. So one, we just want to speak into everybody on this call, like whether you have started something from scratch, are like toying with an idea, or you work alongside somebody else in a business, like I think it's important that all of us have a uniqueness to our story in what's drawn us into the work that we do. And there's some element of personal passion and vision and the things you are working towards. And so when we say founding story, that's what we're talking about, is we're talking about how you personally relate to the work you do. And again, like I said, a lot of what we're going to spend time on today might feel like it's just a natural part of you, but we have found it to be highly valuable to get this story out on paper in a creative way and then begin to share it with others, because the authenticity of sharing why you do the work that you do and how it's fueling the future version of where you're aiming and what you're growing towards is critical in attracting the exact type of partnerships, clients to your work. Because by articulating that in an authentic way, you're going to build a culture and you're going to build these partnerships that resonate. To Aaron, to your list that you were saying earlier, I thought of another one that's a more recent collaboration at the Impact Guild. Is we have a group called CREA Community Consulting that teaches kids the design process. They teach kids through a variety of like tools and workshops how to actually build and design their own ideas and their own creative projects. And then we have another member who does these it's called Crafty Fox Box. So she creates these like take-home art boxes for kids. And they just combined their two elements of what they do to create this craft box for kids that teaches them the design process. And because both of them kind of knew authentically what they're trying to do in the world and teaching kids, they were able to form this great collaboration and move forward into new territory for both of them, but very aligned territory. So we're going to ask you to draw, which I feel very awkward about. I am not an artist, but what we're going to ask you to do, and if you have some actual tangible pen and paper nearby, we'd love for you to snag that, or your iPad that you can sketch on. Tam, kind of looking at you. And what we're going to do, this is an exercise to help draw out how the story of your business is also your story. And like I said, learning to communicate that story kind of through a series of milestones. So we're going to, the exercise we're leaning into is a storyboard. So Aaron, if you want to pull that up, there are 6 boxes on this paper. We recognize that you don't have this worksheet in front of you, although we're going to throw a link to the PDF in the chat if you ever want to like have this for future reference. But the great thing is it's literally 6 boxes on a piece of paper. So you can kind of snag whatever you have nearby. And we really would love for you to put pen to paper throughout the rest of the session. We're kind of going to build on this idea. And so what we do here is in the 6th box, we would love for you, so you can draw those 6 boxes on your piece of paper. In the 6th box, the idea is to draw kind of the most current version of where you are now with your organization and your business. And then after you do that 6th box, go back to the 1st box. And in each box, draw kind of a milestone event that has been formative for you in the work that you do. And through boxes kind of 1 through 5, you're drawing separate moments or kind of pivotal times that have led you to that 6th box, which is like representative of where you are today. So what you're doing is kind of pulling out and recognizing these bite-sized moments where you took a step towards kind of creating the business and the work that you do today. I'm going to give you an example and just kind of talk through my own, and then give you a few minutes to kind of draw and do that yourself, just as an example. And again, I feel vulnerable here with my drawing, especially knowing there are artists in the group, so no judgment. But Erin, yeah, will you kind of click over to the one that shows? Oh gosh. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of talk you guys through what I've drawn. So in the pursuit of the Impact Guild, about 6 years ago, I was just toying with this idea. It wasn't a real thing. I was working at a design agency at the time. But I got an opportunity. The question I guess that was stirring for me was, what if we created a space for people to connect, people who cared about their neighborhoods and their community, but also wanted to form ways they could add value to their community into sustainable businesses. Like there are people like that in the world, right? Who don't kind of fully fit in the business sphere, don't fully fit in the nonprofit sphere, and who want to find a meld between those things. And it was just this idea though. And I was like, oh, maybe co-working is the way to do that. But I got invited, and that thing on the left is an airplane, because I got invited to participate in an accelerator that was over in London. And so I went and took this week away and worked on this idea. And it was truly transformative because I gave some time and attention to the idea. Then the second box is actually while I was in London, it still for me felt very far away. Like, I don't know that I would actually take a risk and do this thing. But while I was in London, I got an email from a group that I know, a church called the Park Community Church. And they said, hey, we've just been given a building. Would you want to make this idea happen in this building? And that like kind of changed everything, because I was like, whoa, well, this means I wouldn't have to go into a lot of personal debt. Like this makes this a more viable possibility, but it was still a partnership that we needed to explore. And there's a hammer on there because there was a lot of construction to do. So ended up going down that road. The building project took about 18 months, which was a really long time. So that takes me to my third box, which was like, it actually underscored, I think if we would have been able to move into the building day one, I would have made it a lot about the physical space. But because the building wasn't ready, it challenged us to get out in the city and get to know other groups. That's actually when we got to know Launch SA, and to really start to think about, oh, community is not going to happen the day we physically open doors. Community happens other ways. And so we did this thing called Good Brunches, that we did pop-up brunches in different cafes around town and had conversations around justice and equity and design thinking, and just started to create this group of people that weren't as much correlated to a physical space, but wanted to have dialogue together, which is part of the vision and goal. And so learned a lot through that process. At the end of it, that group of people were like, what do we do next? How do we do something together? And we were like, I was like, I don't know. Like, we're building this thing as we go, which led us to the fourth box, which is my dear friend and colleague Elizabeth and I ended up writing a book together called Good Neighbor, which is meant to put a lot of the principles that we cared about onto paper and into action, and be a reference guide that groups who wanted to get to know their neighborhood start to think about how they could design creative projects. It's kind of a step-by-step guide for that. So it was born out of this need that the people in box 3 kind of expressed. Box 5 also represents kind of a pivotal moment in for us. That's a group of people gathered around a table at the Impact Guild who have this idea for all those little buildings up in the right-hand corner of, hey, what if we saw properties activated for the community? And this, what has become Good Acres for us, which I mentioned quickly earlier. And that work was born out of the idea of the Impact Guild, which is people were just sitting around co-working one day, started, Ram, a good friend now, said, hey, I read an article about this. Why don't we see more of this in San Antonio? And we just started, I said, oh, hey, you need to talk to this person across the table from you because she does work in this realm. And it formed this little coalition of 5 people who built this idea out. And it was great because that's become a whole program for us, but it also was the vision of what we wanted to see happening at the Impact Guild kind of coming to fruition. So now my 6th box is we're scaling that and trying to do that with more people. We launched a fellowship program, which back to box 1 is the same fellowship that I flew to London to do. So that curriculum, we've become deep partners with that group, and we're now taking people through that same experience that I went and did in London, but they can do it in San Antonio, thinking about San Antonio. So those are just some pivotal moments that have created and helped bridge us to where we are today as an organization. That was kind of my long-winded explanation, but we'd love to just give you time to work on, I think some people are already doing it, putting pen to paper and thinking about what are 6 moments for you that have taken you to where you are today. So remember, step 1 is starting with that 6th box. Start with where you are right now, draw something representative of that, and then go back to box 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and represents those moments that have been formational in your business. And again, we use the word business loosely. If it's still an idea, it's whatever project is important to you and that you are working on forming. So feel free to pop in if you have questions. We're gonna like kind of just be quiet for a few minutes, give you guys like 5 or so minutes to draw, and then we're gonna come back together, and those who are willing to share a little bit, give some space for that. Okay, we're going to give you guys about 2 more minutes to continue drawing. I think we've had some new folks join, so I'm just going to kind of repeat what we're working on while others who've been with us continue. There is a link in the chat to a PDF. It's a worksheet that we're working on to help articulate your founding story. So it's just 6 boxes that you're invited to just draw on your own paper to map out the moments that have been really impactful for you in the formation and creation of the work that you're doing and your business. And we're working on our founding story with the idea of that the story of your business is really tightly correlated to your own personal passion and story as well. And first and foremost, identifying that and knowing it about ourselves. Secondly, about what it means to share about our business from this kind of place of authenticity actually draws people towards your business in terms of the right type of customer, the right type of partnership potentially. And then by being able to continue to practice articulating this, you invite places for connection and collaboration. So that's why we're working on this for those who've kind of just joined in. Feel free. And then in another minute or so, we're going to invite people to share what you're coming up with. Okay, I'm going to kind of bring us back together. It's absolutely fine if you have more you want to keep working on and add later. Again, totally understand that folks might be kind of all over the place. If you are in a space where you can and would like to turn on your cameras, we'd love to turn it a little more conversational. Would anyone be willing to kind of hold up what they've created and talk us through your story? Kind of maybe give us the 3-minute version of your founding story. I know it feels a little vulnerable perhaps, but we're all friends here. And yeah, Tam, please. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Oh, thanks, guys. Can you see it, or is it too much light?
I can see it. Hold it a tiny bit higher. Yeah, cool. Talk us through it.
Okay, so I'm Tam, and I'm the creator founder of Live to Inspire movement. And the first one, I created a large mural in the downtown area of my hometown, which then catapulted me to like, okay, Live to Inspire is, I can create something, with this. So then the second one, I'm like, okay, I need to move out of my safe space, my safe zone. Need to do different changes. So I moved to San Antonio from the Rio Grande Valley. And then the other one is me like starting to get to work. So I sat in my brother's house, and for a whole year, I kid you not, I stayed in my brother's house and just started creating. I created a t-shirt company, design, and then I created a book. And then after that, I joined I walked into the public library with a launch essay and connected with some people. And so I met Jocelyn Banconi there, and she became my mentor, when taking the John Maxwell leadership class. And then after that, I started networking. I started moving and started talking to like different organizations, like Next Level and things like that, to figure out what more can I do with Live to Inspire, because then I created a program. And then now today, I'm leading Zoom online in Austin, and I'm leading here at the Boys and Girls Club, facilitating, to the youth, helping the youth out. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Oh, so cool and good. That's awesome. I love the way you wove kind of what you're passionate about and like towards the vision and how those things have been markers along the way. That's so cool to hear and see. Thank you for sharing.
And thank you for allowing me to do that, because yeah, that gave me like a really how narrowing it down in there, in that fast and small space. And that's good work for me. Thank you.
Good, so good. Would anybody else be willing to share?
I have one that's really silly.
Yeah,
Like.
Bring it on.
Do you mind if I share my screen, because I made it in Microsoft Paint?
Oh, cool. Yeah, Erin can stop screen sharing and you can jump on.
Oh man, I feel so silly with this.
I'm so appreciative you're sharing it. Oh, this is cool.
I had to make it in Paint. So this is 6, right? I don't remember the numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And so the launch, when I think of Launch SA, I'm like, oh, you make the community that helps you or shows up for you, right? Or you build that community. But as I started to think back, there's so many things. So like when we start, feels like it's just an empty set of chairs, and then someone shows up and they're like, hey, I'm here to learn stuff. And then all of a sudden other people show up and connect, right? And then ideally whatever happens here helps somebody get to this point where they're open. But inevitably as entrepreneurs, we feel like no one will come, no one will be here for us. But it's the interactions that happen here that get you here.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's kind of, I feel like I'm building this so that others can build this.
Yes, Ryan, that's what I was about to say. Is I love the way those boxes line up vertically. So it's like what you've experienced 1, 2, 3 is then what you help others on that journey of experiencing 1, 2, 3, and that multiplication factor. You can just picture the world where there's like 18 more rows down from what you've drawn because of that multiplication. That's so cool.
Yeah. Anyway, that was
awesome.
That was mine.
Thank you. And I'm impressed that you did that in Paint so quickly. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a paint fiend.
That's awesome. We've got time for one more. Would somebody else like to hop in and share? If you can't show your picture, that's absolutely fine. You can just kind of talk us through it. Anyone? Okay.
I can do mine.
Okay.
I realized I've actually never done this before.
Cool.
So as a I guess a teacher, facilitator of a bunch of courses on community engagement and design thinking. This is me. I think my big question a couple of years ago, actually, Sarah and Elizabeth invited me to a lunch and learn kind of experience where we talked about the racial wealth inequality in San Antonio. So this is me thinking about San Antonio and thinking about where the greatest need, economic and development needs are in the city. I was in grad school at the time, and as I was thinking about this, I started learning more about race and diversity and inclusion in more of like an academic setting. But I was getting really restless of talking and reading and writing about it, and was ready to do something. I came on staff at the Impact Guild a year ago. So I'm celebrating my 1 year this week, which has been really cool. But I did it during COVID, and then we also experienced snowvid. So I think that experience of learning how to catalyze our space to meet community needs in the area. We ended up doing a pop-up food pantry that weekend. Literally, people in the neighborhood were walking over groceries as other people in the neighborhood were coming, expressing those needs. Like we had someone we had someone who came in and asked if we had eggs. We're like, I'm so sorry, we're all out. And as soon as they started walking out the door, another neighbor walked up with a carton of eggs saying, this is all I have a carton of eggs. And they got to hand them over to our neighbor. But something Sarah and I also haven't said yet, but both of us are designers. We have a design background. So I've also been trying to figure out how to put these principles and things that we're doing into some sort of art. So this is a drawing of a poster that I designed. I'm just trying to figure out how to put all these things together, which I think is really encapsulated in my job. A lot of wondering how people and design elements come together with really well-formulated questions that are rooted in diversity, inclusion, empathy. They give people dignity and help us really come up with the most creative and the most helpful solutions to these questions that we have.
So good.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Aaron.
You bet.
Part of me wants you to take those posters off the wall that are sitting in front of you and hold them up to share it with everybody. So maybe in a second you can do that. So good. Well, I love hearing the passion and the vision behind what fuels different people's work, right? And I think that the whole point is that's what's going to draw in others and already has. And so that's the next thing we're going to do. And Aaron, when you have a sec, you can start screen sharing again. We would like to build on this founding story storyboard and ask you to draw a network map. And what that is going to look like is, again, blank piece of paper or paint board or iPad wonderfulness, whatever's in front of you and your good ways that you work. Draw a circle in the middle. And that circle in the middle is you and your business. And then off of that circle, you're going to draw 6 different nodes. It's like on the screen, it's labeled as a moment, but you're going to draw 6 of those that correspond with the 6 boxes that you just drew on your storyboard. And off of each of those nodes that represent that moment, I want you to think about the people that were pivotal in the relationships that help bring that thing to life. They helped bring that moment of your story and made it possible, right? Because the whole thing is none of us have done the work that we are doing and done in the past and continue to do in isolation. And often we think about and name these moments and we don't as often stop and think about what is the connective tissue between all of those moments are people and they are relationships. And so that's what we would like to invite you to do right now. On the next slide, I will again show you my craziness that I draw. But so this is the idea, right? Is those darker circles, that's me in the middle, Sarah. And those darker circles are the moments. I just kind of labeled them. So the first one for me was going to London. The second one was the Impact Guild. The third one was Good Brunches. 4th, Good Neighbor. 5, Good Acres. 6, Fellowship. And off of those, I'm listing all kinds of people and organizations that have been pivotal to connect and lead me from one moment to the next, if that makes sense. So, right, we name, oftentimes we think about, oh, well, if I'm going to start this thing and grow to the next level, I need capital. And we think about capital as financial capital. I need the money to be able to do this thing and to grow. And absolutely, that is an essential resource. I think more often we could ask, well, what is that capital for? Because the money matters in order to buy something, to lead us somewhere, right? So, oh, well, because I need to design and launch a website and I need an agency who can do that. Well, maybe, but is there also a way that there's somebody in your network who designs and builds websites who could really use your skill set and you could barter and trade services. It's just one example, right? Where we think about it being financial capital, and really perhaps it's relational capital. And relational capital is what we're naming and doing and creating this network map. Is where have you already had people that have played that role? And teaser, where we're going to go next is what gaps do you have, and like where do we need, like where could you grow in order to take it to the next level? Where do you maybe need other people to kind of fill in? But for now, would just love for you to take a moment and draw the network map, referencing back to your founding story. Again, if there's any questions or clarifying points, feel free to kind of put them in the chat or unmute and ask. This can be conversational, but similar to earlier, we're just going to give you a few minutes to work on that. As you all continue to work on this network map, I'm going to invite Erin to say a little bit more about what I was kind of talking about around capital, and the idea of moving beyond financial capital, or in addition to, and thinking about different types of invisible capital. So there's an author we really like who put some good words around this to even build on the idea of some of that is relational and social capital, but there are even other types of invisible capital. So Erin, feel free to kind of flesh that out a little more for us as everybody continues to work on their maps.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris Rabb, in his book Invisible Capital, says that invisible capital is the toolkit of our skills, our knowledge, our language, our network, and our experiences, along with the set of assets that we were born with. Some of these assets are fixed, that we cannot change who our parents are. Others are in our power to modify. What makes them all invisible is that our society does not acknowledge that entrepreneurial opportunities, and thus entrepreneurial outcomes, are greatly influenced by these assets. These assets being our social capital, our human capital, and our cultural capital. Our social capital we can think of as our network, the people that we know, as well as how people think of us. You know, you can have some pretty bad social capital in which people know of you and they don't think highly of you. We're going to try and stay away from that. Human capital being your skills, your credentials, your experiences, and then cultural capital. And this one's, I think, my favorite because it's the most fascinating to me, is how you operate in different environments and your ability to communicate in ways that inspire confidence and that create opportunity. I'd like to push that a little bit further and say, how can you communicate in ways that inspire confidence in you, in your idea, in what you stand for, and that create opportunity, not just for yourself, but for everything to progress, for everything to move forward. How are you opening doors? How are you able to navigate through systems and social networks in ways that create opportunity for people to grow and to move forward? like I said, Sarah and I both come from a design background. So in the work that we do, we often employ what we call human-centered design, where we approach things by thinking first of our end user or our client, our customer. And one of the reasons we're really excited to be here with SAEW and talk about this, especially for a time such as this, we're talking about coming out on the other side, the opportunity on the other side of COVID, of this time of social distancing. We get to really think about, this is like someone, I'm trying to remember who told me this. Someone said that COVID could be the great reset that we all need. So as we're all kind of resetting, we've taken a lot of lessons from the last year. What are we moving towards? And hopefully that's towards deeper connection with people, really learning that this sort of capital, this more invisible capital, hopefully is going to stay pretty constant even when things like financial capital can wane. So as you are thinking through your network map, we want to take some time to really think through where you are now, that opportunity on the other side. Where do you want to go? If you'll take some time to map out 3 more boxes, 1 to 3 more boxes, where you see yourself going in the next 12 to 18 months as an organization or as a person within an organization. What are those snapshots, those boxes? As you're dealing with maybe the loss of clientele or trying to figure out, how to, what's the COVID word? Pivot. How do we pivot? How are we going to rebuild? We want to take some time to really think through those next 3 boxes. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to also do that as you're finishing up the network map.
That's good. I'm happy to give my example on the next one if it's helpful at all as people transition. So as Aaron's saying, just give yourself space for 1 to 3 more boxes. And then what we're asking you to do is look forward, right? Look forward the next 12 months and say, where am I headed? Where is this organization headed? And for me, box 7 and then box 8 is, for us, we are launching into this fellowship idea of we're beginning to scale, kind of similar to Ryan's as well. Like, we're thinking about, okay, we've gone on this journey ourselves as an organization. Now, how can we help a whole other set of fellows around the table build their own social enterprise idea? And so we're a couple of months into a 6-month process for that group of people. And then box 8 is the for us, our Good Acres project, where we're excited over the next few months to actually launch new projects on other people's properties and help them on that journey through Good Acres that I was mentioning. And so we're going to be actually, we have 2 groups who are reconsidering. One's considering 13 acres, another 1 acre, and we're helping them listen to the community, think about what the right entrepreneurial move is to do on that property, and then actually develop that project. So that is a growth area for us as well. So those are what those 2 boxes represent. So taking a minute and, as Aaron said, kind of writing your next future moments and things that you can envision for your organization.
Sarah, can you please repeat that one more time on these three, please?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, Erin, do you mind clicking back to the slide that laid out the instructions a little bit more so? Yeah, one more. There you go. So those are kind of your 3 steps. You're doing the same storyboard idea, but thinking between now and 12 months from now, what are those moments that you anticipate and you're working towards happening? So now you're same idea as we did earlier, but earlier it was reflecting into the past. Now we're asking you to vision into the future and draw like 1 to 3 of those things that would be moments that you're envisioning as far as what your goals are and what you're working towards in the next 12 months. So you can draw, I only drew 2 of them. You could draw 1, you could draw 3, but that kind of future version. Is that helpful?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
For sure.
And for the folks that just joined, grab a piece of paper and try to, I guess, just draw where you see yourself going, right? Ideally, would that be like a quick explain?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for joining and being a part now. What we've been doing is talking about how our own founding story kind of fuels the work that we do. The ability to share and articulate that story draws in partnerships and draws in the right type of clientele. We also then took a moment to kind of map the relational capital. Like we often think of financial capital, but one of the things we're talking about in this session is what's often referred to as invisible capital, which are more these things that add extremely important value to the growth of our organizations, but often go unnamed. And so we took a moment also, and we'll share the slide deck so you can work back through it, but took a moment to map the network of relational capital. And yeah, just as Daniela just said, now what we're doing is taking a moment to think about the future of where our business is headed in the next 12 months. So we're inviting you to get a blank piece of paper or iPad or however you like get creative and draw 3 boxes, and you're gonna draw, and Erin could click over to my example for a sec, but you're gonna draw a couple of moments in time that are where you see your business growing over the next 12 months. We're going to do that for another minute or 2, and then Erin's going to kind of lead us into our final exercise.
All right. As y'all are finishing that up, it looks like time's kind of getting away from us, so I don't think we'll be able to share it out yet. But with this human-centered approach to what we're doing as an organization, I want us to think about really the question that our organization seeks to address, that seeks to answer, right? What is the value I'm hoping to bring to the city, to the community that I'm in, to my neighborhood, right? How am I addressing some design question? It could just be that, you know, people like how are people getting access to lawn care, or you know, it could be a deeper, you know, how are we moving towards justice and equity in our city through art, or through co-working, or through, you know, whatever that question is. We want to kind of hold that as like our compass, but then allowing people to kind of be the guardrail for us as we move that idea forward. People are going to be voting on our business with the way that they engage with us, the way that they spend their money, what they show up for, what they don't. And as we start to learn how to listen and see those relationships as they've formed around our business, we'll know that our demand for our business will never go away if we have this network of people and if we're choosing to listen to those people as well. If you learn to listen to the demand that is already around you in your network, then you're going to be long-term sustainable. The demand for your business, for your organization, it's never going to go away. So this is a tool that we have, and Sarah, I think, posted it in the chat. This is our stakeholder map. So if you put your design question here, your organization here in the center, what you're hoping to do, especially within the next 12 months, think of putting that here in the center, and then go around and say, who are 12 groups or organizations in maybe the geographic area that my work is focused in, the people who would be most affected by this work. Let's put them here. It could be my employees, the people in the strip mall that my business is located in. It could say the area schools. You could start to really flesh out just the groups, the organizations, right? The neighborhood association. It could be the police. It could be start to imagine what sectors really go around that question. Who has the most to gain? Who's the most affected by this question as well? And then in here, start to write down the people, the individuals in those spheres. And the more closer to the question, maybe is the more aligned to that question as well. It's someone who is also holding that question as you get to talk to them. Like if you're doing work with children, who's the most passionate about the next generation, about kids, about education? Maybe they're here, but maybe the first person in the organization, they're the ones who are going to connect you to the right person. So maybe that first person is out here, a little bit more tangential to the question, but it might lead to the next relationship. As we start building out that network map and seeing how we're connected to each other, this is a way of really making sure people are also connected to passion, right? What is that line that draws us to each other? Hopefully it's passion. Hopefully it's an idea of how we see the world, how we see a bigger idea, a more robust idea, a better idea, because there are more seats at the table. It is more inclusive, it is more empathetic, and thus more resilient, because we're thinking about capital. What if we dared to imagine our capital not just as financial, but as human capital, as social capital, as cultural capital that helps us to navigate through hard things? We're so excited that we got to be here for SAEW this year, because I think this group this year has taught us resiliency like no other year has. And we're so grateful that you are still here. You're brave enough to keep coming to the table with ideas, with questions, with passion. That is a network worth having. The people in this room are a great network to have. The Launch SA team, wonderful people to bounce ideas off of. We would love to be that as well. So we don't have time to really go through the stakeholder map and present to each other, but we would love to continue this conversation. This is our, this is what we talked about today. Overcoming isolation is being able to share our founding stories with each other. The idea of building community through invisible capital and our network map, and then the resiliency going forward, identifying stakeholders and our goals through the stakeholder exercise and the future storyboard moments. We're at the Impact Guild, which is located at 708 West Summit. down in Beacon Hill, Alta Vista area. If you know where Chris Madrid's is, we're pretty close to there. So come on down, grab a burger and come hang out with us. We would love to get to meet you, hopefully in person pretty soon. There's our contact information and our website. But yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions right now. We have a couple of minutes where we get to chat a little bit further. Looks like Sarah has a thought too.
Yeah, well, I was just going to reiterate, I'm so grateful that that stakeholder exercise, we anticipate, and ours is the same, that there will be some people that are already in your network that you can name because you're holding that question together. But there are probably categories that you will identify where you don't yet have connections and relationship. And we're hoping that that exercise helps you name both of those things. And just as Erin is saying, like the Impact Guild and Launch SA, we're here to help you. That exercise hopefully helps you see, you know what, I really want for my work to bridge to the arts community. But I'm not very in touch with the arts community in San Antonio yet. And to be able then to go to Ryan and Daniela at Launch SA and say, hey, could you guys help? Or Erin and I over here, like we would love, by identifying that this is an important kind of slice in the pie for you to develop deeper relationships in, then you can tap those of us that like we're now in connectivity and relationship with one another to say, hey, could you help introduce me to somebody in this sphere that you can identify? So that's what that stakeholder map is meant to help you do, is both kind of take it to the next level of who don't I know yet that might be a really important collaborator in this work. And as Erin was saying, we ask you to spend a little time and put a design question at the center of that in a slightly different way than your business, because it's not just saying, my business has to be the center point that everybody wants to help grow my thing, but the idea that whatever impact you're trying to have through the work that you're doing, think about that and name that. And that's how you're going to identify that next level of potential partners, because they're going to be desiring that same impact. They're going to be asking that same question. And that's how San Antonio is going to really grow this network as a community and see business as a force for good, as well as if we identify those things that all of us are trying to see, you know, more job creation, all of us are, you know, those who want to see, as Erin's example, like how justice and equity might be advanced through the arts. Well, by naming that and getting clear on that for yourself, you're going to be able to really map out who else you want to grow relationship with. So that's kind of the hope for how you take that tool forward. And as he said, if you kind of, if that generates some thoughts and questions, we, even beyond this moment, we would love for you to reach out and get in touch and let's get coffee or come by the Impact Guild. And this is the type of stuff we love Entrepreneurship Week, because it catalyzes connectivity beyond just this week. And I know that's the vision and the goal. So we really mean that in terms of that invitation. But yeah, are there any closing thoughts before Ryan and the Launch SA team kind of wind us down? We've really enjoyed spending this morning with you guys. Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Erin. I thought this was extremely valuable. And hopefully the attendees see the same value in this. I believe that the work that y'all are doing is truly transformative for the community. And I'm just happy to have any chance for you guys to share the wealth of information that you're building with the community. And ideally, we can build stronger communities by recognizing that there are more facets than ourselves, potentially money and just, you know, other things that we see as potential limitations or overcomable. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but so I really appreciate you taking the time. And if there are no questions, oh, there we go. We have a comment. Thank you for this. I was having to work and listen. I'll be going back and doing the exercises. Awesome. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And with that, I guess we can close the session.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks
guys
so much, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah.
Have a good Friday.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.